It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind where the city outside buzzed with the usual energy of New York, but inside my apartment, I was in a rare moment of calm. The quiet hum of my computer was the only sound, save for the occasional tap of my fingers on the keys as I sifted through emails. I had a few minutes before a meeting, and I thought I'd catch up on some mundane correspondence. That's when it happened. A message popped up in my inbox, a number I didn't recognize. At first, I dismissed it as another spam message, the type you get all the time, promising everything from miracle weight loss pills to discount vacations. But the subject line, "I have something you need to see," struck me like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't typical of the usual junk I received. I clicked it, my curiosity piqued. The email was brief. Attached was a link to a video, and the note simply read, "Your spouse is hiding something from you. Watch this." I froze. A chill ran down my spine as the weight of the words settled in. For a moment, I hesitated. My mind raced through a dozen possibilities, none of them good. Was this some kind of prank? Or, more terrifyingly, was it something real? My hand shook slightly as I clicked the link. My name is Ethan, and I'm 37 years old. I've spent the better part of my adult life building my career as a corporate lawyer in New York City. I worked long hours, sacrificed weekends, and did what it took to make my name in a competitive field. I wasn't a man who let his guard down easily, and for years, I believed that hard work and success would grant me the stability I sought. But Sarah was the one thing that made it all worthwhile. She was a beautiful, ambitious woman who had captivated my heart when we first met. I thought I had it all. We were the envy of our friends, sharing moments on social media, attending every charity event and gala, the perfect couple. People admired our relationship. We had been married for 5 years, and for those years, I thought I knew her better than anyone. Sarah was my partner, my confidant, the woman I trusted above all else. But something in me began to stir as I stared at that email, wondering what exactly was hidden behind the walls of our perfect life. And in that moment, with my finger hovering over the video link, I knew my life was about to change in ways I couldn't yet imagine. That Saturday afternoon, everything changed. I clicked the link, the screen flashing briefly before the video began to play. My breath caught in my throat as the images slowly started to materialize. At first, I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. The footage was shaky, the lighting dim, but there was no mistaking the scene unfolding before me. There, in the center of the frame, was Sarah. She looked relaxed, smiling, her body language open and comfortable, something I hadn't seen from her in a while. But what caught my eye wasn't just the expression on her face. It was the man beside her. He wasn't a stranger from the few names I had heard her mention from work. No, this was someone completely unfamiliar. The moment the camera zoomed in, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. They were sitting on a bed, close, too close, laughing at some private joke. She leaned in, placing a kiss on his cheek, a gesture so intimate that it hit me like a punch to the gut. I froze, unable to look away. My hands gripped the edge of the desk as I willed myself to breathe. The video kept playing, showing them exchanging affectionate glances, their hands casually brushing against each other. I could see the light dancing off the glass of wine in her hand, hear the low hum of a distant conversation. It felt like an invasion of my privacy, yet the footage was too revealing, too raw. The camera moved closer, capturing moments I could never unsee. And then, the final blow. The man's face came into view as the video wrapped up. I knew instantly who he was. David, my wife's colleague. A man I'd met once at a dinner party just a few months ago, thinking nothing of him at the time. He was a decent-looking guy, charming in that way people in Sarah's new office were. I never imagined he would be the one to break the trust between us. But there he was, smiling at her, a smile that wasn't just friendly. It was something deeper, something more personal. A wave of realization hit me all at once. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had been having an affair. The betrayal hit harder than any physical blow ever could. It wasn't just the act itself. It was a deception, the secret life she had been living while I remained oblivious. I could feel the anger building inside me, but I didn't let it take control. Over the years, I had learned how to control my emotions, to keep my composure even when the world seemed to be crumbling around me. And right then, That was the key. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I had to think this through. I had to be smart. This wasn't just about a mistake or a moment of weakness. No, this was something planned, something deliberate. I had to be strategic. I needed to gather evidence. I needed to make sure I had every piece of the puzzle before I exposed the truth. I closed the laptop, my hand shaking slightly as I leaned back in my chair. I stared at the blank screen, my mind racing. Sarah had no idea what I knew, and that gave me an advantage. I couldn't let this turn into a mess of accusations and arguments. I needed to play it cool, to gather everything I could before I confronted her. I wasn't going to be the one to lose control, but I also wasn't going to let this go. She had crossed a line, and I was going to make sure she would face the consequences of her actions. I didn't know how yet, but I would figure it out. One thing was certain. I was not going to let this betrayal define me. I would expose it on my terms, in my way. And when the time came, Sarah would regret underestimating me. 4 days, I went through the motions. I smiled when I needed to, answered emails, and made small talk with colleagues. To the outside world, nothing had changed. But inside, I was a storm, my mind racing, formulating a plan that would slowly and methodically unravel everything Sarah had hidden from me. I couldn't afford to lose control. Not now, not when everything depended on precision and strategy. So I kept my composure, locking away the anger and hurt that gnawed at me every waking moment. Every time Sarah kissed me goodbye in the morning, every time she made a joke over dinner, I was reminded of the lie that she was living. But I wasn't going to let her see the effect it was having on me. Instead, I started my own investigation. I went through her phone records, carefully scanning for any unfamiliar numbers. I pored over her texts, looking for signs, anything that could give me more answers. When I found a conversation between her and David, my stomach twisted. It was casual at first, just messages about work, but then it escalated to inside jokes and comments that were way too familiar for my liking. I didn't let the sting of it distract me. This was just the beginning. I also started looking into her social media accounts. Sarah was meticulous in her posts, always keeping up with the facade, sharing pictures of our vacations, family outings, and dinners. But the truth was buried beneath the filters. There were comments and likes from David, small interactions, unnoticed by anyone else, but they told a story. I knew I needed more than just the digital breadcrumbs. That's when I decided to take things further. I hired a private investigator, someone with experience in discreetly gathering information without raising suspicion. I explained the situation in as much detail as I could without giving too much away. I needed to confirm what I already knew. This wasn't just a brief affair. This was something that had been ongoing for months. The investigator quickly uncovered what I feared most. Sarah had been meeting David regularly. They would meet at different places, always under the guise of business trips or work dinners. The investigator tracked their movements, their conversations, even their hotel bookings. Sarah had been playing me for months, living a double life right under my nose. It didn't stop there. The investigator revealed even darker truths. Sarah and David's relationship wasn't just an affair. It was a secret partnership. They had plans that involved more than just stealing moments behind my back. Sarah had been siphoning money from our accounts to fund their trips. She had been lying about her work schedule, canceling family commitments to spend time with him. And the worst part? She thought I didn't know. She thought I was clueless. But I had been watching, quietly and carefully, every step of the way. She had underestimated me. She thought I would forgive, forget, and move on like every other time she had kept something from me. But this time, I wasn't just going to let it slide. This time, she would face the consequences of her actions, and it would be on my terms. I started to piece everything together. The emails, the texts, the dates, and now the full scope of a betrayal. It wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about control, about making sure she understood the depth of her deception. Sarah would have to face the truth, but not in the way she expected. I wasn't going to confront her with anger or accusations. No, I would expose everything, piece by piece, slowly taking away the perfect life she thought she had built. Her career would be ruined, her reputation destroyed, and everyone she had tried to deceive would finally know who she really was. I wasn't doing this out of vengeance. It was about restoring my sense of self, reclaiming what was mine, and making sure that when Sarah thought back on this, she would realize that I was never the fool she thought I was. The day had finally come, the day I had been quietly planning for weeks. Sarah and I had planned a quiet dinner at home that night. She was excited, her usual enthusiasm about our time together, but she had no idea what was coming. I knew her well enough to sense when she was distracted or distant, but tonight she seemed completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit. As we sat down to eat, I played the part of the attentive husband, listening to her talk about her day, about her work, about her plans for the future. I nodded occasionally, offering polite responses, but inside, I was boiling. I watched the way she smiled as she spoke, her eyes lighting up when she talked about her colleagues, and I wondered how many times she'd smile like that while hiding her betrayal. I kept my face neutral, focusing on controlling my emotions. This was not the time for anger. Not yet. I needed to keep my calm so that when the truth finally hit her, it would hit hard. I didn't want her to see the fire building inside me until it was too late. The dinner ended quietly. We cleared the table together, and she made a passing comment about how nice it had been, how we needed to do this more often. I smiled, but there was no warmth behind it. I excused myself to the living room, knowing the moment was near. When Sarah walked in after me, she was still oblivious. I could see the excitement in her eyes, the joy of the evening still fresh in her, not yet realizing that this dinner would be the last one we shared under the false pretense of a happy marriage. She had no idea that her carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. I motioned for her to sit, and she did, her face still soft with the glow of the evening. I placed a manila envelope in front of her on the coffee table, its contents concealed inside, but the weight of what it held was heavy in the air. "Sarah," I began, my voice steady and even, "you've been hiding something from me for a long time. I've known for a while, but now it's time for you to see how much I know." She looked at me with confusion, a slight furrow in her brow as she reached for the envelope, clearly unsure of what was happening. As she opened it, I could see her fingers trembling slightly. The moment she began to pull out the photos, the text messages, and the printed screenshots of the video footage, her face slowly changed. The color drained from her cheeks, and the confusion melted away, replaced by something I hadn't expected: fear. Her breath caught in her throat, and she looked up at me with wide, shocked eyes. "Ethan, she stammered, but I cut her off, my tone calm, controlled, but ice cold. "I know about David," I said, letting each word sink in. "I know about the affair. I know it's been going on for months. But what you don't know, Sarah, is that I've been gathering everything, every single piece of evidence." Her face was a mixture of disbelief and panic now. She stood up, her hands trembling as she stepped back from the table, almost as though she were trying to escape the reality of the situation. "You don't understand," she started, her voice shaking, but I didn't let her finish. "I understand perfectly," I said, standing up to face her. I wasn't going to let her make excuses. I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. "You've been lying to me, betraying my trust, and living a double life. But I'm not going to play your games anymore. I'm going to expose everything." She took a step back, her breath coming faster now. The panic was palpable, but it didn't move me. This was a reckoning, and I wasn't going to let her escape it. "I can't," she began again, the words stuttering out as if she was searching for some explanation, some way to make it right. But there was nothing. There was no excuse, no justification for what she had done. The truth was too clear, and the evidence too damning. I watched her, feeling the weight of the moment settle into the space between us. There was nothing left to say. "You can't undo what you've done, Sarah," I said softly, but my voice was firm. "You can't change what's already been exposed. And I'm not going to keep living this lie. This ends tonight." She faltered, her eyes darting around the room as if she could somehow find a way to escape the truth. But there was no way out. The damage had been done. In that moment, I saw the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, unravel before me. There was no hiding it anymore, no pretending. And as I stood there, watching the woman I had shared my life with crumble under the weight of her lies, I realized that this was it. This was the moment where everything changed. This wasn't just about a marriage falling apart. It was about taking control, about reclaiming my life from the lies that had kept me prisoner for so long. And Sarah? She was going to learn the hard way that there were consequences to every action. I reached for my phone with a steady hand, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. As I typed out a quick text to my lawyer, I could feel Sarah's eyes burning into me, though I didn't look up. I didn't need to. This was no longer about her. This was about me reclaiming control. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with a response. My lawyer's office confirmed that everything was in place. The papers had been filed. The divorce was official. The process was already underway, and there was no turning back now. I had already taken steps to ensure that Sarah's world would come crashing down, just as mine had. I had contacted her parents, her mother especially, who had always been supportive of me, though I had no illusions that her opinion would change now. I had contacted her boss, making sure they understood exactly who they were employing. And I had contacted everyone who mattered. Her colleagues, her friends, even some of her distant relatives. I wasn't going to let her affair be swept under the rug and forgotten. Sarah had taken so much from me. But now, I was going to make sure that she felt the consequences of her actions. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about making sure that everyone in her life saw her for who she truly was. The woman who had lied, the woman who had betrayed me, and most importantly, the woman who thought she could get away with it. I made sure that everyone who matters knows what kind of person you really are. Sarah, I said calmly, my voice cutting through the silence of the room. Your reputation is gone. Your career is gone. And your marriage is over. The words hung in the air, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I saw a flicker of emotion in Sarah's eyes. Fear. Real fear. Her face twisted, her eyes wide with disbelief. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words got caught in her throat. You wouldn't do that, she whispered, her voice shaking. The confidence she had once had now completely absent. Watch me, I said, my voice low, deliberate, the finality in my tone unmistakable. I could see the panic taking hold of her. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths as she stumbled backward, as though the ground beneath her was suddenly shifting. She was grasping for control, trying to process what was happening, but I could see that she couldn't quite grasp it. The realization was sinking in, and there was no escaping it. The damage was done. I watched her, knowing I wasn't just destroying her reputation or her career. I was taking away the life she had so carefully curated for herself, the life where she had hidden her secrets behind a smile. It wasn't just the affair that was being exposed. It was everything she had built on lies and deceit. She stood there for a moment, frozen, as the full weight of the situation settled on her. Her hands were shaking, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to find words, any words, to explain, to plead for mercy. But it was too late for apologies, too late for explanations. The truth had already come out, and now everyone would know. The next few days passed in a haze. The aftermath of everything that had happened, all the emotions I had pushed aside to execute my plan, came crashing down in waves. But I didn't have time to wallow. I had made my move, and now I was watching as Sarah's world began to collapse around her. She tried, desperately, to salvage what was left of her dignity. She tried to explain, to justify, to make excuses for what she had done. But I knew better. Her apologies weren't for me. They weren't even for the damage she had caused. They were for herself. She wanted to preserve the life she had so carefully crafted, the life that had been built on lies. But there was nothing left to save. Her colleagues at work were the first to turn their backs on her. They had all seen the whispers, the rumors, and soon enough, the truth was out. No one wanted to be associated with a woman who had betrayed her husband in such a public way. The emails I had sent, the video footage, the evidence, everything was out there. Sarah's professional life, once on the rise, was now spiraling into ruin. David, the man who had played his part in this betrayal, was quickly cut from her life. I had made show of it. No one in her circle could support her anymore, not when the truth was so painfully obvious. He had been just as much a part of the deception as she was, and now he was left with the same fallout. His reputation was tarnished, his career damaged. It wasn't just my life she had ruined, it was his too. I moved out of the house and into a new apartment, a place of my own. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and it was a fresh start. I couldn't stand the thought of staying in that house any longer, surrounded by memories of what had once been a happy home. Every corner of that place reminded me of the lies, the false promises, and the trust that had been shattered. It was time to close that chapter and move on. Sarah, now completely humiliated and alone, reached out to me multiple times. Her calls and texts were a mix of desperation and anger. At first, she tried to apologize, to plead for forgiveness, but I knew better. I had seen the person she really was, and her apologies felt empty. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry she had been caught. I ignored every single message. I didn't owe her an explanation. I didn't owe her anything. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about taking back control of my life. The silence was deliberate. I wanted her to understand that she had lost more than just me. She had lost everything. My plan was already in motion, and there was no turning back. As much as I had once wanted to save our marriage, that version of me was gone now. The man I was before the betrayal had to die so that the man I had become could rise. I wasn't going to be the one who got hurt this time. No, I was going to ensure that Sarah would never forget the consequences of her actions. And as I moved forward, I realized something important. I didn't need her apologies. I didn't need her to make things right. What mattered now was that I had taken control of my own fate, and I wasn't going to let her, or anyone else, steal that from me again. It's been 6 months since that night, and I'm finally at peace. I rebuilt my life from the ground up, and I've learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful form of revenge. I didn't need to shout, to scream, or to get angry. I simply exposed the truth, and that was enough. Sarah? She's gone. And David? He's out of her life too. I don't know where either of them are now, and honestly, I don't care. I've moved on. I'm free from the lies, and I'm finally in control of my own life again. The quiet revenge wasn't about hurting anyone. It was about reclaiming my life. And in the end, that was the most satisfying thing of all. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more shocking tales of betrayal, revenge, and justice. Don't miss out on future videos.